Hello, everyone. My name is Yinka Daramola, and I'm going to be your facilitator as I carry you into the world of robotic process automation. Robotic process automation is not new and is used very widely by large Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies to make their work easier. Um, as the name implies, robotic process and automation means it has something to do with process automation. What is a process? A process is something that you do to generate output in a business. And there could be a there could be a wide variety of things. But an example is, for example, when you have a new customer walk in the door, what do you do to sort of onboard that customer? Like if you walked into a bank now, you can't just walk in there, drop your cash, and walk out. There are certain things you need to do to even become a customer, right? Uh, that's the process that you pass through. Maybe you need to fill out a form, give them certain data, your ID card, your address, your utility bill. All those things are a process, right? The end result is that they are going to serve you with something, but they need that information before you can even become a customer. Um, in other businesses, it might be easier to get access. Like if you walk into a retail store, like grocery store or something, you want to buy something, you don't need to fill out a registration form, right? So they have different kinds of processes in such a place. But the idea behind robotic process automation is that if there's anything you do on a computer, such as when you walk into that bank, they're registering you, somebody's typing in that stuff. Okay, yeah, what's your name, sir? What's your name, ma'am? What's your address? What's your email? All of that stuff that they type into the computer, a robot can do all of that for them and leave them with more time to actually talk to you and engage you as a person. And as a result, you have a better experience, with the business. So processes are wide and varied, but the idea behind this concept is that anything you find yourself doing over and over and over again in the workplace that happens on a computer is potentially a candidate for automation. And that's where we come in. I'm going to try and show you how to become like an engineer or someone who develops robots for people, so that their lives can be easier. When I say lives, I mean their lives in the workplace. If you go to the office and you're always crunched over the computer doing this and that, it's a bit of a bummer. So we make robots to get the things you need to get done, right? Now it's a multi-billion dollar market, okay? There are certain softwares you're going to learn to use to do robotic process automation. And those softwares are many, and I'll take you through all of them, but they'll give you the tools to listen to someone's problems and build something that will do what the person says they need done. Now, those companies alone, one of them, the biggest one that I know of, made about $5 billion in sales in 2022. The 2023 results are not yet out. Now, that's just one company. Um, so that tells you that it's $1 billion company. Now, that company I'm talking about does not develop robots. They just sell software licenses to companies. We are the ones who build the robots for them. So we have our own market, another several billions of dollars untapped, right? And I'll take you through real world scenarios. But I'm going over this very briefly so that you know that you're about to step into a world that is a specialized world of a few people who have this skill. I thought I should teach it because I was not an IT person at all when I started this. And so I feel like anyone can do this. You don't have to have a background in computer science. It's helpful, but not mandatory if you do. So you don't have to have one. And I entered into this with zero background in computer science. And I've found a niche for myself. So I would say that you should seriously consider and commit to joining me on this journey. Now, why should you listen to me? Well, I have about 20 years of work experience. I started out as a management consultant back in Nigeria with Philips Consulting. At that time, I did, when foreign direct investors wanted to come into Nigeria, they would reach out to the top consulting firms and say, okay, can you help us do a market survey and prepare us like an entry plan? So that's the sort of thing I used to do back then. Shortly after, I moved into financial consulting. Um, and at the time, the banking system was undergoing recapitalization because of a government mandated increase in capital basis. So there were a lot of mergers and acquisitions activated, and we were the ones who basically went into the banks and tore their books apart and decided how much are you worth, you know, to potential acquirers or partners. So that was what we did. I used to lead teams and do a lot of that. Shortly after that, I was a fund manager. I managed about $23 billion in, did I say billion? Million with an M, $23 million. I'm sorry, for a couple of years. And then the stock markets crashed, and I wasn't really comfortable with telling people, oh, that's just the way it goes. So I thought maybe let me go and learn how these businesses that we work with, that we buy their stocks, right? How can we take small companies and convert them into big companies that are quoted on the stock exchange, right? So the idea is you go there, you you join a smaller company, and you learn their business, and then you teach them how to scale, right? So in other words, you standardize their processes so that they're not so dependent on the boss or one staff to do everything, right? So that's when I entered into the world of understanding business processes. So you find that in small businesses, one of the main things that differentiates them from big ones is that big ones have taken the time to standardize their processes so that if one person suddenly leaves today, the business doesn't go crazy, it doesn't stop running because the way things are done are documented and the knowledge is transferable. So that's an essential skill a person should have if he wants to help a business grow. But it's also essential for a business itself if it wants to move beyond just the current CEO's capacity. We have a lot of people who are business owners, but they are not free because if they close their eyes, their business will collapse. So until they learn how to standardize their processes so that things can get done the way they want them done, on time, the same quality, regardless of who does them, then they don't really have a good chance of scaling. So I would go into these businesses and of course it's obvious that everyone's running helter skelter because they've never bothered to define a system of delivering value. So I would listen to them, I would write down their processes and basically organize things in a way that, okay, this is how you onboard your clients, this is how you do your payments, this is how you do your delivery, this is, you write all that stuff. And so I got very intimately familiar with, how businesses run. I joined a manufacturing company as a general manager, and since then I've been sort of like a business manager for most of the time. I think at least 20. I'm sorry, at least 12 years or more of that. So I learned how to understand business processes, and so what I would do is I would write these processes, and you'd be surprised that as soon as you deliver these processes to the businesses and you follow through with them. Like I remember the first company I joined. In the first year, their revenue grew 200%. Their profits grew almost 1,500% just because I standardized the things that they were just doing, haphazardly. And so that was exciting. But shortly after, I got into this. I noticed something that once you are not there to supervise people and say, okay, this is the way things should be done, they start doing things the way they like. And so I found a different kind of problem. That it was one thing to write processes, it's another thing to have them executed the way you want them done. And that typically meant being around and saying, oh, did you do it this way? Oh, no, no, you've got to do it that way. And that's kind of time consuming. But I find that a lot of managers today. That's what they do. They follow through with people, checking up on them every week. How have you done? What have you done? And it's very draining, really. And so, well, since I didn't know a better way, I continued doing that, but I found it very exhausting. And then one day, I went for a development training because when you have questions, you keep learning how to do. You take leadership courses, you take management courses. I got an MBA after about I think it was 12 years after I left school, left college. I got an MBA, and it was helpful, but it still didn't solve that problem of how do you get people to do what you want done, even though you've taken the time to write the processes. How do you get people to do what you want done? I mean, what you want perfectly right every time. You have to be there to supervise them. And so, on one of these trainings, I took a deep dive into some of the technologies, trending or emerging technologies, and I discovered robotic process automation. And that was the answer to my question. You can write down a process and say, you guys follow this every time the customer comes in, but they're going to do something wrong. They're going to mess it up, because they're human, they make mistakes. Or if the person doesn't show up to work, then it doesn't get done. Or if the person gets sick, it doesn't get done. Or if the person has too much work and the customers are delayed, all of these problems will not affect a robot. So, for example, I worked in a doctor's office for a long time, medical practice. And before you can see a patient, you have to take the medical history, family history, social history. There's a bunch of stuff you have to collect from the patient before you can even talk to the doctor, you know? And that took so much time. So I found a way to automate that stuff so that, they spent so little time doing that the patients were able to see the doctor faster. And, you know, it was just a better experience for everyone, both the worker and the consumer of the product. So that was great. I found a solution in robotic process automation because I'm the one who writes the processes, right? So I already knew that, okay, step one, step two, step three, step four, step five will generate that result. So quietly, I chose one project after I finished that course. I said, can this be true? So there's something you do in a doctor's office. Now I realize it's not the same thing everywhere in the world, right? But in America, insurance pays most of the bills. So when someone is coming in to see the doctor, the first thing you want to know is who's going to pay the bill, right? I mean, I did this for 9 years. I worked in the medical industry for 9 years. And I can tell you that less than 1% of the people who come in there pay cash. So I'm talking about 99% of the time, somebody's going to pay you with insurance. So the first thing you do is that you want to know who's going to pay this bill, and is this person eligible to be seen? Because if you don't check that before you see the person, nobody's liable to pay you. So if a doctor, like the average doctor in my office, you see like 25 patients. So that means you have to check the insurance for each of those 25 patients before you can accept that they will see the doctor. And what does checking the insurance mean? Maybe if the person's insurance is Sharp, it means you log into Sharp websites, you put in the person's name, age, date of birth, member ID, depending on, unique identifiers, and you search their database. And if the person is eligible to be seen, the person will pop up on a screen and they'll tell you how much is the person's co-payments, is the person's insurance going to expire anytime soon, what is covered, that kind of stuff. So your job as the receptionist is to pull that report and attach it to our own local electronic medical records so that when the billers want to send an invoice, there are no stories about this person was not eligible to be seen and you saw him or her. So imagine you had to do that for 25 different people, and you had like 5 doctors on call. So that means one person has to do, what's that, 125 times log into different insurance sites because people have different insurances, just checking to see, can I see this person? So that's a full-time job. And because I understood those processes, I just took one insurance company and I taught the robot, this is something we do every day, right? Why don't you go in there, check that patient, and get it done? And guess what? it worked. Do you know that since then, a human being does not do that work anymore? And the human beings are free to engage with patients, do higher value tasks. And the time that you have saved, because this thing I'm talking about takes 4 to 5 hours a day to do by somebody. And that person suddenly has those hours back to do more higher value things, right? So the company is saving money, generating more output. It's just a better deal all around. Now, I don't want to spend too much time. I don't want to spill the beans too much, but I'm trying to show you that the potentials for this are limitless. If there's any computer-based task, it can be automated. The question is, which one should I automate? Which one will bring the most value to the company, right? That's what's important. And so I've run through a brief profile of myself. Academically speaking, I have a bachelor's degree in economics, a master's degree in business administration, but more importantly, I'm an advanced, a UiPath advanced robotic process automation developer, right? Meaning that I can handle very complex automation scenarios. I've taken the hardest training, UiPath, one of the world's largest RPA software vendors certification exam, and I'm certified. And then in addition to that, I'm studying for a doctorate in business administration right now with IT as a specialization because I'm trying to research how we can make this RPA or intelligent automation a norm in the average business because of the fact that it's such a powerful technology. And so that's what I'm focused on. But because I myself have broken into this industry, I wanted to share it with other people who might not be IT savvy but feel like they are locked out. Now, robotic process automation developers earn between maybe 150 grand and 200K a year, average skills one. So that's not like super high income, right? But the thing about being an RPA developer is that you can do this for several businesses at the same time, depending on your capacity. And so that scales your your ability to generate revenue so much more. Now imagine if you are earning 200K from 10 different people. Now that makes a difference. But guess what? That's what learning how RPA works will do for you. You will have that ability to be a specialized consultant in a relatively esoteric field. I'll tell you more about how to get it done. I'll lead you through um, real world scenarios, and you'll leave here pretty steady and pretty much very much assured that you can do something for someone. That's my objective, and I'll try to make it less technical um, for people who are not so, I'm sorry, IT savvy. But I will not pretend that at some point you will not need to go and write the advanced developer exam yourself. But I'll give you enough to feel comfortable doing that. All right. So I hope you've enjoyed this rather long-winded introduction, and I look forward to partnering with you and walking you through this billion-dollar industry. Thank you.